Welcome back to Souhan Unfiltered at SouhanUnfiltered.com, part of the Alive and Social Network. Today's guest, Glen Perkins. I think Minnesotans might be familiar with him. You've been around. You've visited Minnesota, haven't you?
I've been there a time or two.
I'd like to thank my sponsors, O'Gara's Bar and Grill in St. Paul, Kieran's Irish Pub, downtown Minneapolis, the local Irish Pub in downtown Minneapolis. Appreciate their support. Go out, see some dark carved wood, drink some dark beer. That's the way to live. That's the way I do it. Perk, thanks for coming up. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna stop you quick.
Go ahead.
I actually have a pretty funny story of something that happened the other day. You talk about Minnesota.
Awesome.
And visiting. So we had Eric Perkins over. He wanted to do like a little house tour thing, and I made him go down the slide, and he did his Perk at Play routine. And then that day,
he's a hell of an athlete, by the way.
That day he came, he rode down my slide on a dolphin, which I'm scared to do. But so that day, then it was the night of the Gopher game. Mm-hmm. And so my wife was here, and the kids were in the gift shop, and they run into Eric Perkins. And he was buying something to bring back home for his kids. And he goes to check out, and he gives the lady that working the cash register his credit card. And she sees the name. Oh, Eric Perkins. Oh, are you related to Glen? He goes, no, I'm not. It's funny you say that. And Alicia was right in line behind. So he glances back at Alicia, and so he's checking out whatever, and he goes, no, but he's a Minnesota kid. And she says, he doesn't live in Minnesota. He lives down here. And he looks back at Alicia again and gives her a little nod and looks back at the lady and goes, thought he lived in Minnesota. And then just got his stuff and walked away. So I guess the people here must think I'm from here. I spent enough time, I guess. But
well, it's a good sign for your career that people want to claim you.
I'll take it. It's good to be wanted in places.
It's been so much fun being down here talking to Tori and Mikhevich and Guardado and having them tell stories. And as I told Mikhevich when he came up earlier this morning, said the challenge here is for you to be funnier than Tori and less disgusting than Eddie. He said that's not really that difficult.
No, you can fit. You can. That's one end of an
wide
extreme,
parameters.
and then all the way on the other end. So,
what was it like to face the Gophers the other day?
It was fun. It was. I don't know how. I mean, it was weird in a way. I spend so much time around them, so I still feel like I'm part of the Gophers. And, they go out of their way to make any alumni that comes back feel like that. They're always part of the family. But it was weird seeing those guys in that dugout, but awesome, and knowing the opportunity of putting myself back when I was a Gopher, how cool it would have been to come down and play the Twins. And not just on a backfield, not just, they saw some good pitching, they saw some good hitters, they saw our top prospects, they saw good players. And then, just being here, experiencing that, the crowd that those kids got to take part in. I kind of try to put myself in their shoes and think, how cool would it be? And that's kind of where I got myself worked up and thought I better do a good job, because those guys are expecting me to go out there and hey, this guy's good, and he's been in all-star games, and so I kind of felt a little extra pressure to go out and perform well. More so than in spring training games, where you always want to do well, but the goal is getting yourself ready. And for me the other night, it was more pressure to make sure I had a good inning and make the coaches, John and Rob and T.O. proud.
For someone who once was considered to have an anti-authoritarian streak, you're really close to John Anderson. You're really close to Terry Ryan. You're really close to the people in the Twins front office. You're really close to a lot of authoritarian figures. I don't think you're as difficult to handle as you once were thought.
No, and you know what? It just takes time. I think maybe everyone has a certain way of going about their business and life and all those things, and but I think once people got a chance to know who I was and what I was about, the perception changed pretty fast. And I think I've had a good relationship with, most of the people in our front office, with the coaches with the Gophers, and the media, and all of those people. I've had a really good relationship with them for a long time now, and it's easy because I'm not acting, I'm not playing a part. That's just that's how I am, and so people come around a little bit to everyone's way of doing things, and you get along, and like I've said a million times, I'm not any different. You write for a newspaper, you host a podcast, we all have jobs, we're all people. We just have different jobs, but it doesn't mean we can't. There's no reason that I can't get along with someone in the media, or I can't get along with our general manager, or our stats guy, or whoever it is. It's that we're all trying to do a job and all trying to make our way through life.
You seem really happy, and I think you probably should be. You got to play baseball where you wanted to play. You're having a great career. You have a long-term outlook with this organization, either as a player or anything else. And you get to come down to Fort Myers in the wintertime and spring training. Things are going pretty well for you, I think.
It is. And, I mean, the biggest thing is just being comfortable. And once you find that, it makes things a lot easier. From really, after the 2011 season, I had a good year. I knew that I was going to get to be here. I was hoping to sign a deal after that season, which I ended up doing. And that takes so much pressure off everything else of knowing. I remember sitting in spring trainings thinking I was going to get sent down, or assuming I was going to get sent down, and wanting to be one of the guys, even looking at like our bullpen catcher or, the coaches, like they know where they're going to be. They know where they get to go. And it's such a relief to not have to worry. Like I know on April 4th, I'm going to get on the plane and I'm going to fly to Detroit. And that's such a relief and makes everything else easier. It makes you more comfortable in life and on the field and in the clubhouse and all those things. It helps so much to make everything flow. And, I don't take it for granted because I remember where I came from and what I've gone through and put myself through and all those things. So at this point now, you can enjoy it, but at the same time, you don't take it for granted because, there were a lot of difficult times, but it's definitely, I like where I'm at right now.
I talked to a lot of people the other day about expectations for this team, and the Twins are known for being fairly cautious with their rhetoric and not overplaying prospects, not overhyping their teams. And yet, Terry Ryan came out and said it's time for this team to go to the playoffs. Rob Ante said we want to be great. Torrey Hunter said I came here not to mentor but to win games. Dozier said he thinks this team should be moving toward winning a World Series. What's your mentality? And is it realistic to think this team this year can make a big jump, or next year?
I think we're on the verge. I think I've talked about it a little bit. Last year was disappointing in the way, a lot of guys performed throughout the season, the way I performed down the stretch. Times that where we should have won more games. And I think our true talent last year was a 500 team, and we didn't get there. And, you're a 500 team. You're not far away then from being really good. And I think I saw the other day the Royals were 82 games, 85 games, 89 games. And I think if we can have the mindset of last year we were a 500 team, we were an 81 win team, it's not a reach to be in competition right down the stretch and see where it takes us. And a lot of that, you get off to a good start, you play well, you go on a run at some point. I know the Royals last year is a great example of a team that spent the first couple months figuring things out.
Yep.
And they started to win some games. They went on a run, and they got into first place, and then you start believing in yourself. You start feeling it. And that I wasn't around those teams 2004, 5, 6, but that 2000, I believe it was the 2006 team that went on a crazy run.
The last 4 months of the year were as good as
it was
ever
like
in
72 and 30 something.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And you start winning some games, guys start believing in themselves, and you go. And I think that's, from the outset, you have to set your expectations to be able to do that, to avoid the here we go again. We've been crappy for 4 years. And with the changes we've made and the coaching staff and some players we brought in, we have an opportunity to say this is our starting point. It's not about how bad we've been, but let's see what we can do from here forward. And we've done stuff in spring training to eliminate some mistakes that we've made. Guys have worked either harder or in a different manner to avoid the things that happened in the past couple of years. So I think it's an opportunity for us to say, this is our expectations, and we're going to try to meet those, rather than our expectations being, let's not stink like we did the last 4 years.
It looks to me, tell me if I'm wrong, it looks to me like you guys are working a lot more on holding base runners and pickoff moves and all that stuff.
Yeah, more than we ever have. That's a part of the game that's overlooked. Mm-hmm. And Molly, in his first meeting of spring training, said we want to win the 90-foot battle. We want to gain 90 feet on offense, and we want to hold them from getting the extra 90 feet on defense. And it's a good outlook because those 90 feet throughout the year end up adding up to a lot of feet and a lot of runs. And we scored plenty of runs last year to win.
Yeah,
way more games. I mean, we were, I think, 7th in baseball.
Yep.
We had to be like 5th in the American League. That's playoff caliber offense,
and that's without Maurer having a healthy year.
right? And so it's for us, it's about preventing more runs and figuring out ways to really get down to the basics of that. It's not we need better pitchers that have lower ERAs. It's let's nip little bits off of everyone's job. Every guy, if every guy can be a little better, then as a team we're going to be a lot better. And we need to prevent runs better, and that starts with keeping that guy in first base and not letting him get to second, not letting him get a lead to go to third, go first to third, things like that, where you prevent that guy from getting the extra base, and then your chances of him not scoring are greater.
Yeah. As somebody who's written a lot of baseball game stories, especially in the 90s, I was always amazed at how many games, when you're looking for the turning point or the key moment, involved situational baseball, not somebody hitting 4 home runs or somebody striking out 12 or whatever. It's amazing how there are games where, let's say, Torrey Hunter hits 2 home runs, drives in 5 runs. That's the game. But there are a lot of games where it's the passed ball or it's the guy going first to third and somebody throwing the ball in the dugout. That ends up being the difference. It's
giving the guy the extra base, and whether it is not charging the ball from the outfield and keeping that guy at second, or keeping him at third, or not holding a runner like we've practiced, is throwing to bases, getting comfortable throwing to bases, holding the ball, being comfortable on the mound, not getting caught up in everything that's going on, but being able to focus on the hitter, 1, and then on the base runner, 2, and keeping him where he is. It's a lot harder to score when you don't give up free bases,
yeah.
and we gave up a lot. We've given up a lot of free bases, so I think that's more than anything what Molly has stressed is executing cutoffs and relays to keep guys to be efficient with that, and then us as pitchers keeping guys close enough to the bases to where they don't steal on us, and then like I said, they can't get that extra base. They can't do first to third on a ground ball to center or ground ball to right.
Paul, we know how smart Paul is. I got to cover him as a player, and he's just incredibly intelligent, sees lots of things. But he's also always been very reserved. How's that translating into him being the manager and commanding the clubhouse?
I think he's in a spot now. The last few years, since I've been here, everyone knew he was the smartest baseball guy in the room, but he didn't have the platform to really do everything that he was capable of doing, maybe wanted to do, and he's the boss now. I mean, he's the guy. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, that's what we're going to do, and so he can hold that meeting in the morning and say, this is how we're going to do it, and where before, maybe someone, hey, let's do it this way, and he's thinking, man, if we tweak this or tweak that, it'd be a little more efficient, but he wasn't in a spot to be able to do that. And I even know last year as a coach, he did a really good job at the stuff that he was
allowed to do or
allotted to do, and but as a manager now, he's going to be able to utilize all his intelligence and tools and all those things, and we're going to be a better team for it.
Now, this isn't 60 Minutes, so if I ask a question that is a little too leading, you can just tell me to screw off and we'll move on. But I sensed last year that Molitor was almost frozen out by the staff. Is that something you care to address?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he just everyone knew that what he could provide, and really it wasn't just him. I mean, everything filters up to the manager, and then the manager decides what to do, and so. When you have a guy like that, it almost creates an elephant in the room, mm-hmm. in that people know what he's capable of, but he did a really good job of staying in his area and doing the things that he did, and he did them as good as you could possibly do, but I think he can breathe a little easier now because he's the boss, and that's going to be a good thing for everybody.
Has he raised his voice yet?
No, we haven't gotten to a situation, I guess, yet where he's had to. I know he's got fire. I mean, he's there. There'll, I'm sure, there'll be a time where he addresses us, and for him, it's going to be more, let's pick it up and let's do better because I know we can. But he's so calculating that I think he realizes that he can get his message across in ways other than yelling.
Yeah. Well, I covered him as a player, and you saw the fire the way, baseball, you don't always see the fire unless the situation presents itself. You can't strike out. Showing fire after you strike out doesn't do anybody any good. But you could see the fire in his base running, always looking for the edge. And I remember as a coach, 2001, Twins get off on the great start, first place most of the season. End of the season, Cleveland just put it into a gear the Twins didn't have at that point. Cleveland passes the Twins, and Cleveland kind of tried to punk the Twins as they were doing it. And I remember Molitor being on the bench in Cleveland during a loss where he thought his team was getting showed up, and where he also thought the umpires were giving the benefit of the doubt to the Indians. And I remember him having to be restrained from going onto the field. There is, when you see the fire, it can almost be scary.
Yeah, well, and I mean, a great example is last year. I got into it with Josh Donaldson at the beginning of the season, and in the moment you don't know what's going on. I remember Dozier and Plouffe running in and getting between everybody and trying to calm it down, and then but everyone said coming off the bench, he was like he was the fastest, the first guy, the fastest guy, the most. He was the guy that got out there and was ready to go. Ready to whatever needed to be done when he got out there, he was going to do, and he jumped right off the bench and got up there up the steps and was out in a heartbeat, blink of an eye, and that's it. I mean, that's the protective, intense kind of guy that he is, and I see that just I can envision him in Cleveland doing that in the same way that he did last year when that was what everyone was talking about after that game was you should have seen how fast Molly got out there and had the team's back.
You ever see any old YouTube videos or videos of him when he was a young brewer?
No. It's
fascinating. The great thing about YouTube is I'll go on YouTube and find a Springsteen concert from a bar in 1975, and you can go see the Brewers, their first playoff appearance, and Molitor. And what amazed me about him is when I covered him, 2006 on, he had refined his hitting stroke to the calmest, quietest motion I've ever seen in any sport. I mean, he put the bat barely resting on his shoulder. He didn't stride. He just waited, and then the swing was just this, incredibly quick, efficient move that I don't know if anybody else could have accomplished, and that's why he was able to get so many hits when he was 40 years old. You watch him as a young brewer, it was like he was so fired up he was twitchy. It's like the bat never stopped moving, his body never stopped moving, and to see him change his entire swing and then get even better during his career, that's one of the coolest things I've seen.
It shows how intelligent he is, was as a player, and it translates into a manager, and he was able to adapt. I mean, you play as long as he played, 20 years, 19 years or whatever it ended up being, 23 years, I don't know. It was a long time. And you can't do that unless you adapt. But when I was at the U, we had the pro alumni game, and he wouldn't play in the game. He would manage the pro alumni team, but he would hit BP. And everyone would crowd around, and I remember that where he would just sit there, and I remember whoever was throwing the BP would throw, and he was hitting line drives right back through the open angle in the L screen. And he would hit all of them right, and they'd have a little bit of side spin, and just all of them dive right into center field. But it was just line drive at the middle after line drive at the middle. This was in 2002, 3, 4, when, he was 6, 7, 8 years past retirement.
Right, yeah, and when McGuire and Sosa and those guys started hitting a lot of home runs, watching batting practice became a big thing, not only for opposing teams but also for fans. Molitor, I think, is the last player I ever remember the opposing team coming out to watch and take batting practice who wasn't hitting at 500 feet. Mm-hmm. And he would wear out, the first base, second base hole, and then he'd wear out center field hole, and then he'd wear out the left field hole, and then he'd hit gappers to the right center, then he'd hit gappers to the left center, then he might hit one down the line, and then his last swing, he'd hit one in the seats just to do it. But it was the most scientific thing I think I've ever seen in baseball.
Yeah, his bat control. That's what I remember just of those pro alumni games. The bat control, even at 45, 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever he was at that time, it was amazing. But it didn't translate to his fungo swing. I think he needed the ball to be moving and spinning.
It's true. I've had a lot of people tell me that hitting a fungo is just a different thing. I've never tried, so I don't know. Hey, so Eddie Guardado's back. There was a guy who, turned himself into an all-star closer when by all rights, he wasn't set up to have a great career. He failed as a starter. He becomes a lefty specialist. He becomes a situational guy, becomes a setup guy, and all of a sudden he's a closer, and he becomes an all-star closer. What does it mean to have him around? And have you talked much?
We have. I mean, we've the last couple of years when he's been the guest instructor,
yeah.
we always took time to talk and go over some things. But it's going to be good. Just he's a guy that in our bullpen now that has more experience than anyone in our pen, doing the exact same thing and all of the things that all of our guys in the bullpen do. Like you just said, I mean, he was a fifth inning reliever all the way back to the end of the game,
yep.
and he did it all. Long guy to a closer, so he's going to be able to provide some insight. He was able to throw for a long time, so he knew how to save his arm in the bullpen, which is a big thing. Over the last couple of years, you see guys throw a lot of pitches in the bullpen, and it adds up over the year, just the same way taking extra bases adds up, throwing those extra pitches in the bullpen when you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And he's already addressed that with guys in the pen. And those are things that he's going to be able to provide unique insight. And what players like, you hear a lot of, what's this guy going to teach me? He's never been in the big leagues. Well, Eddie did it, and he did it at the highest level, in the All-Star game, in the playoffs, all those things. So guys you can't question what he's going to say. What he says is coming from something that he's experienced. And so that's going to be a big help in just keeping guys fresh throughout the year, keeping guys motivated, on a routine, all the things that can make you a successful baseball player. He's going to have a part in that. And he's also got a good idea how to pitch, to teach. And he's going to be a good extension of Neil Allen.
I remember Eddie. I remember talking to Mike Trombley, guys like that. They would always talk about all the goofy things they do in the bullpen, just to kind of keep from putting too much pressure on yourself. Enjoy, stay loose. Do you guys do anything? You have
guys move around and do that. I get down there a little later, but in the last few years, what we've done is like a points style game, I guess, where at any point during the game, a guy can make a call on a guy. So, you throw your hat down. So whatever that guy does, if he hits a single, you get a point. If he hits a double, 2, so on. If you get a single and an RBI, you get 2 points. And so at any time, a guy can make a call on a guy. And then if you make a call and you score a point, then you get to make another call at another point. And if you don't, then you're done. And we kept track over the last 2 years, kept track of all that stuff. So it kind of keeps you in the game. And that's really it. I mean, the goofing around stuff, I think that's probably calmed down over the years because there's a lot more cameras. There's a lot more.
So true.
And so I don't think you can get away with the same things, and it would look bad to be. But that's a way for us just to stay in the game and also make the game move along, and that you sit out there and it gets long because you're just watching. You don't know what's going to happen. Guys get loose, they do their thing, but that's been the fun thing the last couple of years is just keeping track of who can make good calls on guys and things that happen throughout the game.
You've had some time to think about it now. What did it mean to close a game in your ballpark in the All-Star game?
I think the thing for me that I can't wrap my arms or head around is being a math guy is the odds.
I know.
Of me doing that. And when you add everything up with I'm born here, and then I play at Minnesota, and then I get drafted by this team, and then I'm a starter, and then I'm a reliever, and then I'm in the minor leagues, and then I'm come back up and I'm a reliever throwing in the 7th inning, and all of a sudden then I start closing, and then the All-Star game happens to be in Minnesota in a year where I have a good enough year to get to the All-Star game, and then the score is right to where I can go out and pitch that inning, and all those things those dominoes that had to be lined up in the right way. It's crazy. I can't fathom when I think back about all the things that had to go right, that right and wrong, but just all the things that had to happen for me to be out on the mound at that time is beyond what I can comprehend. And so it's hard for me to comprehend the moment because it was so overwhelming. The whole experience was overwhelming. And I do hope that I make more All-Star games, but I know that it's never going to be as cool.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, there's not going to be a better moment than that. I would love to win a World Series as a team and share that with teammates. But even pitching the last out of Game 7 at our field in the World Series, I don't think on a personal level can top that. I mean, that was it was just so much like Minnesota love. I don't know. It was it was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and all the fans that were cheering, knowing everything about me, and just being out there, and I know how proud Minnesotans get of when other Minnesotans do anything, and so it was cool to be able to experience that with all the fans that were in the stands.
And add to the odds. And that's one of my favorite things about sports, too. It's amazing how many times things like that happen that you almost feel like had to be predestined somehow,
Yeah. I mean, that's, I remember when I got drafted and I'm coming up and I was in the bullpen in 06 and 07 and, I'd started in the minor leagues in college and all that. And Alicia's asking me, would you ever be a closer? And I said, no, I'm a starter. I would never be in the bullpen. And then there I am out there doing that when I completely wrote it off, and then there I am. It's hard to describe. It really is.
And take all the mathematical anomalies you already named and add in the fact that you got to throw to a Twins catcher too.
Yeah,
I mean, it just adds to it. Amazing. What's your second best moment in baseball, if that's the best?
Oh man, I guess probably. Maybe getting drafted, maybe getting called up for the first time, pitching in Fenway Park in my debut. There's so many that are right real close together.
Yeah.
Pitching in the playoffs when I have 10 days in the big leagues. Mm-hmm. Facing Frank Thomas, facing Jim Thome, playing with Jim Thome. Pitching to Ken Griffey Jr., guys that I grew up watching, idolizing Randy Johnson as I come up, and then we play the Diamondbacks in 2009. And meeting him, as a peer and stuff like that. My Kent Herbeck, getting to go fishing with Kent Herbeck and hang out and listen to him fart. Like things like stuff like, I collected Kent Herbeck.
That was redundant, by the way. Being with Kent Herbeck and Kent Herbeck farting, that's kind of understood.
Like growing up collecting his baseball cards and watching him win a World Series. And then there I am sitting in a Major League clubhouse with him, and he's a normal, he's a normal dude just like everyone else. It's just all of the experiences in baseball have been amazing, and the All-Star game was a whole nother level. But even the 2013 getting selected for that game, like it's just all those moments are really kind of clumped together in awesome moments. And then there's the All-Star game is way above that.
I know you've become close with Joe Mauer, and he's had a rough go here. He just has not been himself, hasn't been healthy for a number of years. What do you expect from him this year, and do you think he's really completely healthy? Because I thought he was going to have a great year last year, and he just never was. He had the back thing, he had knee problems. It never really worked out for him.
You just never know. I mean, as guys age, you don't know how they're going to go. He works hard. He wants to be successful, all those things. You hope that it works out, just like it does for any guy. Nobody wants to go through what he's gone through the last couple of years, and really since he signed that contract, it's been tough, and it's not you can't blame him for what he's gone through. I mean, he's done everything he can do, and just bumps and bruises and crappy things happen, and so hopefully he's had a year to recover from the concussion, a full off season, all those things. He's still one of the best hitters I've ever seen. And even, watching him in BP, and I pitched him in live batting practice and all those things, it's still there. And it's just about being able to go out and do it. And I think the expectations that we have for him don't meet what the expectations he has for himself. I mean, his expectations are the highest. And he's a lot like Molly, where you don't see fire, you don't see him snap, you don't see him get frustrated, but he does. Just like I've said numerous times, he's just like we all are. Just because he's Joe Mauer and he's not on any different pedestal, he's not any different than we all are. He goes through the same stuff, and so just like any guy on our team, I hope it works out. I hope Ricky Nolasco has a great year, and I hope every guy has a bounce back year and a great year, and so I hope that it just works out, because I know how hard he works and how much he wants it, and I also, to some degree, can appreciate the spotlight that he's under. Mm-hmm. It's the spotlight that's on me is very dim compared to what's on him, but I feel pressure from external forces and fans and people in Minnesota, and it's way more for him than it is for me. So I know that he wants to do well. I know that we all want him to do well. Hopefully it works out. I mean, that's all you can really do is he's done everything that he can do, and hopefully he can go out there and get it done.
As an analytical guy, you look at the lineup of the future that's getting pieced together now, and you got Sano and Buxton coming up. You have Santana and Vargas who started to establish themselves last year. You got Escobar. You have Arcia. You have Plouffe. It's for
Brian
Dozier. And, well, I was actually thinking of more corner positions. But I guess the point I'm getting to is here you have Maurer, who's a great athlete who probably could adapt to a lot of different positions. Analytically, does it matter to you that you have somebody who primarily is a gap-style hitter playing first base, or would you guys be better off in the future with Vargas or Sano or somebody else playing first base and Joe moving to another position?
You have to. All it is you have to make up for that offense somewhere else. And a great example is the late, the 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 when we were good, and Joe was catching, and you're getting that offense from the catcher position where you wouldn't normally get offense. You can put Nick Punto at third, where you would normally get offense and not defense, or not as good of defense. And so you can put Nick Punto there, play phenomenal defense, not hit like a catcher, because your catcher's hitting like a third baseman, and so if he still provides a lot of offense. It's just not the back of the baseball card type of thing. And so if he can get on base, if he doesn't make outs, and there's some power doubles, his power in general was down last year. Yeah. He had obviously the one outlier year of home runs, but he's had some years where he's hit a lot of doubles and he's hit the gaps. And he, in a way, if like what Plouffe does at third with his bat, and what Maurer can do if they somehow can lump together a little bit, you can get pretty good offense out of your two corners. And we have enough guys around the diamond, and then you talk about guys coming up with a Sano that's going to be a power guy wherever you put him. Arcia, as long as he continues to develop. Buxton is a 50 or 60 power tool projected guy and a 70 hit tool. Mm-hmm. So then you're getting some great offense and world-class defense in center field. So you can pick up when you don't have your 30-homer guy at first base, you can pick it up in other spots. Right. And the way our offense did last year with being the seventh best offense in baseball, we had Kurt behind the plate, hit not like a catcher. Right. He had a great offensive year, so that picked up slack from other positions where the offense wasn't as good. Escobar hitting 40 doubles from the shortstop spot. You pick up offense from a bunch of different spots, and there's those guys that I mean, the offense, it's not what it was, and so you almost across the board lower your expectations for what offensive players are, which is why a Nelson Cruz that can't play defense, can't base run, can't do anything but hit home runs, still gets paid because it's really rare now. Home run guys are really rare. Power guys in general are really rare. So those guys get paid well, and not a lot of teams have them.
Why would power be down? I can't think of any scientific reasons why power would suddenly be down.
Isn't it? They said it has something to do with the strike zone.
I think the wind just blows in at all ballparks now. That's all it is.
I don't believe that. It's blowing in today because there's no game. If there was a game, the flags would be going straight out.
All pitchers are weathermen. Give me your view of Nolasco, if you don't mind.
He came into camp ready.
This year,
I've noticed that. Yeah, I mean, not that he wasn't last year, but I know that
he looks leaner this year.
I know that he has something to prove and feels like he has something to prove, and that's good. I mean, that's what you want from a guy that had a down year and didn't meet expectations of himself or the fans or what really maybe the organization expected. So he's came in, and I've seen him playing catch. I've seen him throw a little bit off the mound. I've heard what Phil Hughes has said. Watching him throw, and Phil plays catch with him every day. So his stuff looks good. He looks healthy. He looks in great shape. And I was talking to him the other night against the Red Sox in the bullpen, and he's you can see that he's excited. Where last year it was he's here trying to find his place in the team and figure out a new organization, and he was excited talking about pitching the other night, and we were talking about counts and locations and pitches and what he thinks when he's out there and those things. And I could feel a different vibe from him than I did last spring. I was in his work group last spring, so I spent a lot of time with him and played catch and all those things. And he seems like a different person this year. So hopefully that'll translate onto the field. Well,
last year, it was easy to pick on Maurer. He had a down year. It was easy to pick on Velasco because he had a down year. And, Maurer, I thought a lot of it, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you know better, I thought a lot of it stemmed from the back problems early in the season. Because as someone who's gone through back problems, not many things you can do well when your back is hurting.
It's debilitating. And not only is it debilitating just for your back, but it prevents you from doing other things.
Yep.
And preparing and gaining strength and all those things. I mean, and some of that I'm sure went back to the concussion stuff that you're trying to figure things out again. And, hopefully, like I said, further removed. I think the further guys get away from concussions, the better off they end up being. Justin Morneau went out and won a batting title.
Morneau's a great example, yeah.
And he was a shell of his former self his last year with us. And he went out and had Coors Field, but he still had a great year.
Yeah.
He had a great year. And so the further you get away from those concussion problems, the better off guys are. And, there's not even enough research on what head injuries do to your head, let alone, what does it do to your muscles and the rest of your body? If your brain's not working right, I can't imagine that your muscles are going to be working right either. And so he has that, there's that atrophy just from concussions in general. All of that, you probably trace it back. And so as those things heal up, as your head heals up, as your nerves heal up, all those things, every guy, you see it. Every guy that you get further away, they get better. And he's still young enough that he should heal up and he should be stronger and all those things. And I think he believes that. And so, you never know what it all is, but all we know is that he's further away from him than he was before, and he's probably better off for it.
And with Velasco, my personal theory, it's always harder when you're talking about injuries and people aren't always going to be forthcoming on these kinds of subjects when you ask them. But I got the sense that he was pitching hurt at some point last year because, I didn't project him to be a great pitcher, but I projected him to be a solid innings-eating pitcher, and his stuff just didn't have any life early in the season.
No, and I think he probably dealt with it for a lot longer than anyone really knew. And I don't even know. I'm speculating just like anyone else is, but that wasn't the pitcher that they signed.
No.
I think everyone knows that. And the worst feeling is, I say it, when I've signed my 2 contracts, is there's an enormous expectation to live up to it, for one. And my contract is half of his, so I can't imagine those expectations. And so you're trying to make good on that and be the guy that they sign and that the fans expect. And so you want to go out there. You don't want to sign a 4-year deal. You maybe tweak something in spring training and say, man, because then it's immediately, this guy signs and now he's hurt. That's a crappy spot to be in. So you try to fight through it. And that's the thing about our game, and where you see, I've been dealing with this thing for a while because we deal with stuff. Baseball players, pitchers, I know for sure, we're always dealing with something, but a vast majority of it goes away just by time going on. Stuff heals up. I might have a sore back. I'm not going to say anything because I'm good enough to go out and pitch, and I know I can pitch at a level where I can succeed. And then then it ends up going away. But then there's stuff that doesn't go away, and so you say, how long have you been dealing with? Well, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Because sometimes you give it a little bit of time and it goes away. So you want to see if it goes away before you pull the chute and go on the deal. You want to try to make it go away. And so that's just trying to live up to expectations and to earn the money, all those things that you don't want to be a guy that collects his paycheck on the DL. And it's a weird thing because it's in a way counterproductive, but at the same time, it's about pride. It's about being out there for your teammates and not backing down when you have a bump or a bruise. Sometimes that bumper bruise goes away. Sometimes it gets worse, and then you got to go on the DL. But I think, in general, you try to fight through it, and he tried to fight through it, and it wasn't working. And then at some point, he realized, you know what, this isn't the best thing for me or the team. I got to do something about it.
I know you've become buddies with Phil Hughes, and it's pretty interesting, given the stereotype about greedy athletes, that you've signed at least 2 deals that could be considered less than you would get on the open market, maybe even a lot less than you can get open the market. And Phil turned down a chance to go pitch out of the bullpen for a third of an inning and get a bonus that would have been very easy for him to achieve, and that the Twins even offered to him. I asked this to Phil the other day, and I was wondering, did you get any pushback when you signed what is considered to be a less than market deal? Does the Baseball Players Association, does your agent, does somebody in your family say, "Come on, go for the gold here"?
No, definitely not in my family. I mean, that the money that I've made will be just fine, and that's the most important thing to me, really, and I'm more so to Alicia and the kids and all of my family is that there's a lot less worry because I know I'm going to get paid money and we'll be able to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. But the pushback, no. And to be honest with you, I went on with Buster only last year and I said the same thing. I don't care. If I got hurt, the Players Association, and I you know what, I'm going to risk it and I'm going to try to make more money. And then I get hurt and I don't make them. Nobody's picking that money up.
No. Nobody's
Nobody's going to pay me. So I'm going to if they give me the opportunity, it's a fair deal. And I signed a fair deal. I didn't get ripped off.
No, it's
and so I don't need to set a record. I don't need to be the highest paid guy. So I don't care. I really don't. The Players Association does a great job. They're there for us, by all means. But they're not going to support me financially if I try to make a risk for the betterment of all these other players. When I get the opportunity, I'm going to take my money because it doesn't last. Your career doesn't last forever, and I don't. That wasn't even a consideration for me. Once I sat down for the first deal with my agent and said, if they get to $10 million, I'm signing it. I won't sign one if it's under 10. I get it, but if it's over 10, I'm signing it. Then when we got the second one, I said I want to get over 20. I said if we can get over 20. I don't need to hold out for more. I don't need to try to reprove myself. I wanted to make sure for me that I was going to stay here. That was the most important thing to me. And I'm a steadfast believer that if I didn't sign my first deal, I would have gotten traded. They would have had to trade me, and I wouldn't have blamed them. But that's the reason that I wanted to sign that deal. I wanted it to be, this guy's too valuable to us now where we can't trade him. We can't trade that contract because it's too good. He's outperforming what he's getting paid by so much that we can't trade him, and that's what I wanted because I really believe that I would have, and I wanted to avoid that. I didn't want to be a hired gun for a playoff team. I didn't want to have to go try to sign a deal in some other city. That just didn't interest me. So I wanted to be here, and I didn't give two shits.
There you go, getting into the podcast spirit.
What anyone else thought. I just didn't. It wasn't even a consideration for me. I told my agent what I wanted, and what if they got there, that was it. I did the same thing out of the draft. When I got drafted, the first meeting I had with the Twins, I said, I want what the guy last year got. I don't need to up the ante. It was David Ardzema. He got 1.425. I said, if you offer me 1.425, I'll sign a deal right now, and I'll go play wherever you want me to go play. I said, I'm not going to sign for less, and I don't need more. So just make that offer, and they did. I mean, they waited a couple weeks, and then there it was. And,
bureaucracy,
and that was it. I mean, it's simple, really. And last year, I mean, I talked to the Twins through my agent about it. I talked directly to the Twins about it, and I told everyone in the Rob Antony and those guys. I said, let's just do this. We don't need to negotiate this and that and the other thing. Let's just get it done. This is what I want. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care if somebody says, man, you could have gotten paid more money. You got screwed. I'm making $22 million. I didn't get screwed. That's not getting screwed. I don't care how good I am or anything. I mean, none of that was ever consideration. It was the same thing for Phil. Phil knew, last year after the year he didn't need the third inning to make $500,000. He knew he was going to get more. And he had earned that. And so that was, I'm sure, in his thought process of, I don't need to go out and try to get this. I just got paid $8.5 million for my season. I had a good year. I'll get more money on the back end. You do the right thing, and it works out.
Yeah. I talked to you earlier this spring about, post-playing career, and you talked about maybe not even having another long-term contract and wanting to maybe work with the Twins on analytics. How do you envision that role playing out if it comes to be?
I think it would be something along the lines of shadowing for a little bit to get a feel, whether that's whoever our GM is, if it's Terry or Rob or our assist, following somebody around for a couple of years to get a feel for things. I have a great interest in the analytic side and what Jack has going with our baseball research. And it's not even, obviously I have a little bit different viewpoint as a player, but it's not even that. I love the numbers, and in the same way I hate that organizations and sabermetrics put a number on a guy and say this is player one and this is what he's doing now, this is what we project him to do. I get that. I'm interested in that and how you formulate multi-year deals based on how you think a guy's going to play, where he's at in his age curve, all those things, and then at the same time being an intermediary between the front office and the players and the staff of these are things when I played what I liked and what helped me. This can help you guys. Just in the same way that Eddie's going to be able to help us and say, hey, when I was a closer, when I was a reliever, this is what I did, this is what helped me, maybe it'll help you. I can have that conversation with guys, because a lot of times when you talk to guys, I don't want to hear about that crap. I don't like that. And a lot of times that's because it doesn't support them.
Right.
Players will jump on board of something that supports them, and they'll rebuff something that doesn't. But I was in Costa Rica this winter with some other baseball players and started talking about sabermetrics. We were on a catamaran, and I started talking to Matt Carpenter with the Cardinals. And before I know it, there's 5 or 6 more guys, and we're sitting up on the top of this boat in the ocean, and I'm talking about sabermetrics, and all these guys are listening and asking questions and starting to figure out that, hey, you know what, this stuff's actually kind of cool, and it makes sense. And not that I said anything or gave them anything that would help them. We didn't get that deep, but just the understanding of it, because there's a place for it, and it helps, and it can help players. It helped Brandon McCarthy big time. He went from, obviously he got healthy, but he went from being a injured middling pitcher to a pretty darn good pitcher, and a lot of that had to do with him realizing that I need to get ground balls, and I need to not walk guys. I'm going to try to strike guys out when I can. Those are the things as a pitcher that everyone tries to do that, but when you can visualize it, or when you can see it written down on paper, that how much that can help, what you should try to do when you're out there. And then even further than that is pitching in certain spots, seeing where you get guys out. You may think that I'm going to go down and away from these guys because they can't hit home runs, but they're hitting 250 in that spot. But then in this spot, you don't throw it there as much, but these guys are hitting 100.
Mm-hmm.
250 is good, but you're getting guys out, and it's a smaller sample up and in than down and away, but you're getting almost everybody out here. So throw more pitches here and less pitches here, because then that 250 is still going to be 250, but then your overall batting average against is going to go from 240 to 200, because you're pitching in spots where you can get more guys out and execute pitches. And that stuff that I've talked to Jack about this spring is figuring out where we get guys out, where each guy gets guys out, and utilizing that more to attack spots. Just because you have good enough success here, there's probably other spots where you have more success, where your pitches, whether you're I obviously throw in a lot because I'm a 4-seam in and a slider guy. So I know that I do okay away, but I do a lot better in. So more of my pitches are going to be in. That's the next step of sabermetrics beyond the batting average on balls in play and WAR and those things is breaking the strike zone down, breaking down what you do, finding ways to do it better. Those are all things that it's hard for a front office guy to come and talk to pitchers and say, this is what we should do.
Right.
So that would be something that I'd have interest in doing, in spring training, talking to these guys, hey, this is the kind of stuff that I looked at. This is what helped me. I improved up until the last month of last season. I've improved over the last 4 years. Every year I improved on ERA, on strikeouts, on my strike rate's gone up every year. My walk rate gone down every year, because I start to figure out where I can pitch and where I can have the most success. And you get a feel for it just by pitching, but sometimes when you look at the numbers, it's surprising what you miss. But then you can see things broken down in a way that you wouldn't normally see it, but it's hard to get that into guys. And I try to do a little bit of that, but still I have a job to do, and that's what I'm worried about now is doing my job. And then if I have time to help someone else, then I'll help someone else. But, it's knowing what your batting average is against on fastballs and curveballs and sliders and changeups. And You might need to throw more changeups. You might need to throw less sliders. And Phil did that last year. He part of his success was realizing what pitches he did well with the year before and how much success he had, even in his bad year with the Yankees, his last year, how much success he had with his cutter, using it the fourth most. And he used his slider the second most, and it got killed. So he quit throwing it. He looked at the numbers and thought, what the heck was I doing? I thought that was a pretty good pitch. I got some strikeouts on it. But then you look at it and say, man, I only threw 4% cutters, but they never hit it, ever. So then he throws 30% cutters last year, and they never hit it, ever. So you can learn stuff like that, and that's something where I think when I'm done, and I want to help translate some of that stuff to players and be able to speak in terms of being a player, but also in the lingo of a player.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. And that's the thing about sabermetrics. I'm not so much interested in things like WAR, which is kind of an arbitrary number applied to a player that, quite often just kind of reaffirms what you already knew. I'm interested in the inside, how it affects the way the game is played on a daily basis, stuff that you just talked about, which is pitch selection, location, defensive shifts, efficacy of the running game, how much you should run, how much you should bunt. Because those things, statistical models, will tell you, you really shouldn't be bunting in the first inning.
No, and that stuff's all calculated in run expectancy.
Right.
And that stuff now is, I try to tell guys that when there's situations, hey, we shouldn't. They're saying, man, we gotta move that guy over. And I said, no,
do not.
Let's try to score 3 instead of 1.
Yes.
And I'll say, hey, you know what? If we bunt this guy here, our run expectancy right now is 1.2 runs. Mm-hmm. If we bunt this guy, it's 0.7.
Yeah.
Which would you rather do? Would you rather try to score over 1 and maybe 2, or would you try to score maybe 1? You want to try to, so there's a time and a place. There always will be for bunting, because there's times where it improves your chances of scoring a run if you need a run.
Right.
You get that guy in second base and it's a tie game, and you score that run at the end of the game. Obviously, you want to do what you can to get that as close to 1 as possible.
Right.
And so you're gonna bunt that guy, or you're gonna move that guy over, because then you got a million ways to get him in from third with 1 out. But early in the game, you when you get your guy on second and your run expectancy is 1.25, you try to take that and make it 2 or 3. Get a couple base hits. You don't give away outs, and that's, if you can visualize bunting in like football terms, that would be like in the second quarter. If you're going to bunt a guy in the third inning, it's like kneeling the ball in the second quarter.
Yep. Or
just giving away a
down.
Just giving away a down. That's our game clock. We don't have a clock, but the game ends when you make 27 outs. So every out you make, you're taking off time off the clock. You're just wasting. That's time that you're losing. And so the end of the game is 27 outs, not 60 minutes. And so that, if you can visualize it that way, if you can think about it that way, then that's when you realize that it's not always a good idea to bunt.
Right.
And that's one, and obviously defensive shifts, all that stuff. And stolen bases. I mean, you need to steal at a 70% clip to make it worth taking.
Right.
And, I've talked to Dozier about that, where something cool I saw about Michael Bourne a couple years ago, with all the stolen bases he was a low slugging percentage guy, but he had all these stolen bases, very few caught stealings. High on base, low slugging, lots of stolen bases, not very many caught stealings. And they said, how would it look how would his triple slash of average on base and slugging look if every time he got thrown out stealing a base, you take off an on base.
Right.
And every stolen base, you add a total base to it. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept. And he ends up being like a 280 hitter with a 380 on base instead of a 395. And he was like a 470 slugging.
Wow. Yeah, that's a smart way to do it.
Because he's turning his single, his chopper single or his blooper over the infield into a double, maybe a triple. So those are things that you look at stealing bases, you look at bunting, where you don't want to really give away outs. But if you can steal bases at a 70% clip, it's a risk worth taking. The higher you are, the better. Obviously, I think ideally you want to be closer to 80.
Right.
But 70 is the break-even point. So you get over that. But that's stuff that's the kind of sabermetric stuff that I like.
Right.
More so than the cumulative adding stuff together
I'm
stuff.
with you completely. And, I grew up watching Earl Weaver, and, before – and I used to read Bill James, too, when he was still putting out pamphlets. And Earl Weaver's belief was never give the other pitcher a break. And that's the way I look at it, in a very common sense way, I hope, is, why would you, not only when you bunt, not only are you giving them an out for free, you're cutting down the pitch count for the pitcher. You're eliminating any chance of getting a walk, because most guys, once they have the bunt mentality, aren't going to draw the walk. And most players are not good bunters. So so often I think managers do it because they think they have to do it. And what you're really doing is saying you're about to give the other team one out. You might even be about to give the other team two outs because the guy probably won't bunt that well.
Well, and you just made my job easier. I love nothing more than if I have a one-run lead and I give up a leadoff single and they bunt the guy to second base.
Yeah.
Because all I have to do is get the next guy out.
Yep.
If I get the next guy out, I'm way on the positive side of that equation. So they can give me an out, let him get to second base. As long as that next guy doesn't get a hit, all I have to do is get him out. Whether it's a grounder and the guy moves a third, or I strike him out, or it's a fly ball with a warning track and he tags, or it's just an out and he stays at second base. Then all I have to do is then you get one out and you're just giving away an out, and you're making the pitcher's job easier, especially when you're down to 3 outs.
Yeah.
When you're down to 3 outs, you just gave away a third of the time you have left, and tying the game up doesn't guarantee you a win either. If it's almost like what the Rays have done, first and third, and they'll do the bunt thing. And I say to guys like when we're in the bullpen, if you are scoring a run, you give up an out. You take a sac fly every time, because you'd score 27 runs a game, and you're going to win every game. So if you can give up an out, or if you can score a run, then you give up an out.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't score a run, you don't give up that out, because like I said, if they score that one run, they tie the game and prolong the game, but it still doesn't guarantee them a win.
Right.
If you get that leadoff guy on, your chances of scoring 2 runs are better than scoring 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you try to score your 2 runs and win the game, rather than playing for the tie and hoping that you can hold on.
Right. Absolutely. Last baseball question. I appreciate all the time today. You're probably not into the prediction kind of thing, but do you have a sense where this team could end up, and do you have a prediction for the future, knowing the kind of prospects that are coming up?
Well, you'd hope that the future's good, I guess, first, that we'll keep getting better. There's enough guys coming that are going to help. But like I said, I think we were a 500 team last year that underachieved. And so if that was our baseline going into this year, and I think we improved, we should be better than that. I like what Terry said. I read that too. And that's our goal. It is. And I think that we're going to go out and win 95 or 100 games, probably not. But I think that there's no reason that we can't be in the thick of things down toward the wire this year. That when September 1st rolls around and rosters expand, that we're in the mix. Because I think we have a pretty good team. I think we have a good group of guys, and the way we're going to be prepared in spring training, hopefully it's going to help us in little ways prevent runs, which is what we need to do. We're going to score a bunch of runs. We have a lineup to do it, and we saw that the first night of what our guys, and all last year, what they could do. They scored a ton of runs. So hopefully the things we're doing, the steps we're taking in spring training to prevent runs, will play out in the end. And then that's the idea, like I said at the beginning, is those 90 feet that we're going to save throughout the year add up to some big things at the end. And so as the season goes on, when we can give up less runs in games because we're doing the things to hold them down, it'll give us a chance at the end.
Quick hitters. Is there a TV show you're watching these days? I know you've done this before.
How to Get Away with Murder.
Ooh.
And I think The Bachelor ends on Monday.
Are you a Bachelor guy?
I watched it all the way up until The Bachelor Tells All one, where they bring all the girls back. I didn't see that one, but then I'll watch the finale. I saw who they said is going to win, so that kind of stinks too.
Oh,
but
man.
I love the drama of that show. Those girls, it's amazing when they get like 15 minutes with this guy and they think they're in love, and they're crying when they're leaving, and they can't believe they're getting sent home, and this was their one chance. They got to feel horrible, and I feel bad for them, but it is so stinking funny. But I'm big into How to Get Away with Murder, which the season ended last week, so I don't get to watch that one.
Because I watch a lot of serial TV, especially on plane flights. So
I'm going to start watching The Americans. Is the next one I'm going to watch, because I've heard a lot of good things.
I've
heard a lot of good things about that one. So that'll be the next one I watch.
Yeah, very good. The movie you've seen lately you liked?
The last movie I saw was with my kids' Big Hero 6. I'm not a movie guy.
Okay. Was that good?
It was really good. And they did a good job. I don't know if that was a Disney or not, but they did a good job of mixing in adult humor in that one.
Which is a blessing when you have little kids.
Yeah. So there was things that the girls are laughing because like the guy was like stumbling around because he was running out of air, but they made him seem like he was drunk. So this guy's stumbling around and acting like he's drunk. And so I'm laughing because I'm like, it's like seeing a old school type of movie, like a college movie where this guy's out of control and the kids are laughing at one thing and I'm laughing at, we're laughing at the same time, but at two completely different things.
I was really lucky. My kids were young during the golden age of movies that you're talking about. Movies that were, great for kids and kids would watch them over and over, but they also had enough adult that you could enjoy them. I was really lucky in that regard. Something you're listening to these days?
Not a music guy.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Everybody's a music guy.
Not a movie guy, not a music guy. I'm not. I listen to whatever the top 40 is right now. I was on a country kick for a long time, and I've gotten sick of country. I'll listen to anything. I don't really care. I like listening to music. I don't like seek music out. Right. Put it that way. I'll listen to the radio or like in the clubhouse. I like the music that comes on. I don't have a particular.
All right, last question. And again, I appreciate the time today, Glenn. Favorite craft beer? This might be more up your alley.
Favorite craft beer? Man,
or you can do a top 20.
There's a lot to list. The one I'm on right now is Cigar City in Tampa. Their Hell's Lager.
I have not heard of that one.
Very good beer.
I'll try it.
It's a yellow can with a red sun on it, and not so much craft. I mean, they're a little bigger. They're maybe Leinenkugels.
Okay.
Size of distribution. A little bigger, but not huge. So definitely not craft, but still a localish Florida beer. That's a good one. That's the one that I like down here. You know what? I learned something. I read a piece on beer making one time. I can't remember why, but I just end up stumbling all kinds of weird stuff. And they said something I didn't know, which is that beer makers believe that you should buy either local, where it's going to be the freshest, or you should buy something that's in a can. Because it keeps it the freshest. Yep. And they said, if you're going to buy a bottle, buy the darkest bottle you can. It keeps the sunlight out. Yep. Which I thought was pretty interesting. Yeah. And I followed that rule. I get canned when I can. I like canned beer better anyways. I do too. Think that the glass... It's got a little fizz. Yeah. The glass, I think, flattens the beer out a little bit. I agree. So, yeah. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. You bet. Thanks to my sponsors, the Kieran's Irish Pub downtown Minneapolis across from Target Center, the local Irish Pub on Nicollet, O'Gara's on Snelling in St. Paul. This is SouhanUnfiltered, part of the Alive and Social Network. We'll be talking to you soon. Thanks.